So according to our friends at CBC, Calgary is breaking all-time records when it comes to housing starts, but the demand is keeping the inventories at all-time lows. A surge in new apartment construction was a driving force in Calgary's record-setting new housing starts last year. Now, if you want to read this article on your own, I will link it in the description below. A little blurb from it. The Federal Housing Agency says that 9,034 apartments were started last year, an increase of 17% from the previous year. Of those, 54% of those were purpose-built. Apartments made up around 2/3 of all units under construction, with the total number of units under construction reaching around 23,000. So the numbers don't really line up there in my personal opinion, but it is what it is. If you want to read the article on your own, go ahead and link it in the description. My name is Adam Fyfe, your Calgary Realtor. If you look at this chart here, you can see that even though the housing starts are continuing to break records, we are not slowing down in price points. So if you plan on getting in the market in 2024, you have to do the research. Now is the time to look at what the market is going to do, because if you could look at this graph here, you can imagine that it's probably not going to slow down in 2024. So the link is in the description to book a call. Now, the apartment prices in Calgary are $3,037,700. That is a 17.1% increase from last year, or in numerical terms, it's $44,200. From the previous month, we've actually seen an increase of $8,000, which is pretty wild to say the least. Now, let's remember, there are attributes for this 337. It is a 2-bed, 2 full bath, 905 square foot, underground parking, built in 2005. So when you see this benchmark price, you want to make sure that you're putting the attributes over it. Now, here's a quick blurb from the Calgary Real Estate Board. I'm not going to read it. If you want to read it, it's pretty cool. Go ahead and pause the video or skip to the next chapter. So going back to this chart here, this is a pretty telltale sign of what's going to happen in 2024. We are at record lows for inventory for this time of year. If you look at the sales, we have reached over 800 sales. When you look at May, June, as well as August of last year, those were the only 3 months that actually peaked 800 sales, and we're already there in March. If you look at the inventory, yes, we've increased since December, but we're still lower than all of the months last year. So I would argue that we're going to continue to see price growth in Calgary, especially as demand for affordable product continues to ramp up as the spring season rolls around. So this graph here, or sorry, this chart here is the exact same information, just in a numerical value, and it also includes the days on market. So if you look at the sales, the new listings, the inventory, and then the days on market. The days on market is 23, which is pretty crazy, because if you look at last year, in January, we're at 44, and the lowest that we saw last year was 27. We're already at 23 in March, okay? So we're surpassed everything that we've seen last year in terms of how fast things are moving. The benchmark price is 337, the median price is 317, and the average price is actually all the way up to 341. So I would imagine, like mentioned before, we're going to see this continued trend all throughout the year. So let's just look at some of the kind of the attributes, or sorry, the what would you call that? Some of the statistics about apartments in the entire city. So this chart here is really cool because it shows some different numbers. It's a year-to-date average, so it kind of compares this year and last year. So it's slightly different than the numbers that we just looked at. So when we look at the sales, we've seen an increase. We see a massive increase in actual value, or the sales volume, which is $654 million, which is 50% more than last year, which is pretty wild. New listings is luckily ticked up. Inventory is obviously down. Months of supply is way down. Sales to new listing ratio is at 78.73, which is pretty crazy for apartments. You can see the sales to new list price is actually above 100%, barely, but it's there. The average days on market year to date is 27, which is a pretty big decrease, and then those price points that we just chatted about. So with that being said, the inventory is at an all-time low. This chart here showcases the months of supply and the trend line for the city of Calgary. I would imagine at this point, going through what I'm going through and seeing what I'm seeing with clients, I would say that we're probably going to stay down here for at least 2 years. Yes, we are seeing a lot of new projects come up on the market. It could shift pretty quickly depending on the kind of the timing that they all close. If they happen to all come on the market at the same time, we could see an increase in months of supply, which will balance out the price point. But I would actually have to look into when those projects are going to come onto market and if they're all going to come on the market at the same time. I would imagine Calgary has learned its lesson from years past. A lot of developers in years past have dumped a lot of product on the market, which has completely stalled the market. And I would imagine builders are going to be smarter and try to sell a lot of this product off market and not flood too much on the market and then stabilize their pricing, because the developers will want to obviously get as max price as they can. So we'll see if they actually go about in doing that. So this is a months of supply broken down into the quadrants. We're just going to look at apartments. You can see that everything is roughly around that 0.6 to 0.8 months of supply. City center, just like everywhere else, for every other property type, is going to be the most. You can see that it's still hovering at around 1.4, which is a solid seller's market. But when you look at city center and the inventory that's in the city center, there's just a lot to choose from. Everything else is basically hovering around that 0.6. Like, it's pretty crazy to see southeast, north, as well as east, all hovering around the 0.6 months of supply. So very, very intense market. So this is a quick blurb, like a screenshot, if you would, of the benchmark price. You can see that a lot of things are hovering around that 300,000 price point. We are noticing a pretty dramatic increase, especially when you look at month over month and year over year. But let's remember that all of these have attributes. So when we look at the attributes here, you can see that every quadrant has slightly different. And for this example, we'll just look at the northwest and the west. You can see that for the most part, they're similar, but northwest is a 910 square foot, where west is 974. And you can also see that northwest was built in 2001, where west was built in 2003. So there are some differences there. You just want to make sure that you're overlapping those attributes just to have a realistic view of what's going on in this market and what those prices are. So this is a benchmark year over year comparison. You can see that the most affordable quadrants in the city, northeast and east Calgary, are seeing the most amount of increases, 30 and 35%. Everything else is hovering around 15%, which is still massive increases to say the least. So how does this affect you? I am truthfully blown away with how many people are using this, and I'm very, very grateful for everyone who trusts me with their personal private information. But if you're curious of what your home is worth, your condo, this AI tool is pretty accurate for condos, because it takes a lot of the relevant information of the building and it instantaneously spits out a home evaluation. If you're not looking to sell, that's fine. If you're looking at maybe refinancing or leveraging your asset, this could be a benefit to you. Or if you're just trying to kick some tires and just figure out what's going on in the market, I'm all for it. Go ahead, put your home address in here if you're curious of what that is. Yes, I'm probably going to call. Yes, I'm probably going to introduce myself. But at the end of the day, we can just talk about the market. You can introduce yourself. I can talk to you about what's going on and what I see, especially in your building, and we can continue that conversation. So this is the bread and butter of this whole video, in my opinion. So you can see that this is the microeconomic breakdown. So we've got the sales, we've got the new listings, we have the sales to new listings ratio, we have the inventory, the months of supply, and the benchmark price. So a couple things to note here. The sales to new listing ratio, it is surprising to see East Calgary have over 100%, but if you look at the numbers in East Calgary, you got 20 sales, 19 new listings, and then you look at something like City Center, 380 sales and 510 new listings. So obviously those numbers in East Calgary are going to sway quite a bit, with one sale being a whole 5%, right? Where City Center is going to have a lot more activity to push those percentages up and down. Everything, though, is hovering around that 80%. So months of supply, benchmark price, fairly self-explanatory. Talk about it every single month. Year-over-year price growth, month-over-month price growth. We're going to reveal this now. You can see just how crazy the market is. You can see Northeast actually saw a $10,000 increase from last month. If you actually add in the last 2 months from a lot of these quadrants, you can see that we've seen anywhere between $50,000 and over $20,000 increase. Well, about 12 to 15%, or sorry, $12,000 to $15,000 increase just in the last 2 months. So I would argue that we're going to continue to see this type of growth all throughout the year. I do not think that we're going to see a huge influx in new inventory in this market, but condos are a little bit unpredictable in a sense. You've got to watch those new projects, because as soon as 3 or 4 of them are completed, you get a bunch of new listings on the market. It could shift things pretty quickly. Now, where's this market going to go? Now, I've talked about this before. I would imagine we're going to see more double-digit price growth going into 2025. I would imagine we're going to continue to see an upward trajectory. You can see right from 2022, it stalled off in 2022, 2023 it took off. I would imagine 2024, it's probably going to take off even more. So if you have any questions, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate all of the comments, all of the feedback. If you have any questions, comment them below and let me know what your thoughts are. I will reply in a timely manner and give you my honest thoughts, and maybe we can even have a conversation. So thank you very much. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.